Divorce and real estate, sometimes they go hand in hand, and I'm with Abby Peng here, and she owns her own law firm. Here we go, Abby.
Hi everyone, I'm Abby Peng, principal lawyer and founder of Illuma Family Law.
Abby, question is, what happens when you get a divorce? Divorce and real estate, what happens when somebody has some property, maybe they have their principal residence or maybe they have some other vacation properties. What happens in the case of a divorce? Who picks the realtor? What happens to that property? Can you explain what that is?
Sure, so when you're separated, there's a few options. Usually the parties have to decide whether they're gonna keep the properties or if one of the parties is gonna purchase the other party's interest in that property.
So like they're gonna they're gonna ask if they can just buy them out, you mean?
That's right, yeah. So you can do that. It's not financially reasonable to keep the home, then the property probably needs to be listed and sold.
I see, okay. So when it comes to that step, who decides on the realtor? Is it the two people who are getting a divorce? Is it another person? Is it their lawyers? Like, is it you? Would you do that if you're dealing with the couple?
I wouldn't do that myself, but it would be usually up to the parties. So if they can agree on a realtor, that's great. Then they'll just use that realtor. If they can't agree, then sometimes what the parties do is one party will choose 3 and the other party will choose 1 out of the 3. And if that doesn't even work, or the parties don't want to do it that way, then the parties can choose, each have their own realtor, and then they can co-list.
I see, yeah. And that's actually very common, having 2 realtors. So like one would be working for one of the partners and one would be for the other one. And then when an offer or deal does come together, the 2 realtors, they would talk about it. They would come up with some sort of strategy and let them know what's in the contract. And then both of those realtors would pass on those messages to their clients. So we're really dealing with 4 people at the end of the day, in a sense, right? Dealing with those. Okay, interesting. So what happens then at the end of it when they come in, that they agree that everything is done, they signed off on it, and this all happens before they get divorced, right? Or is this part of the divorce process?
You can do this after separation, but before finalizing your divorce. So a lot of people will agree on selling the property, or at least on how to sell the property, before you apply for your final order for divorce.
I see. So what happens in the case, let's say there's a couple and one of the parties doesn't want to sell, they're happy, they love their home, they've lived there forever, and the other person is like, no, we're selling this, we need to separate, we've been together for too long, that's why we're getting a divorce. So what happens in that case when this person just doesn't want to accommodate showings, open houses, and just keeps saying maybe they're sick all the time,
So when that happens, one of the parties can actually apply for the property to be listed. But if the property is already listed and the problem is that one of the parties is sort of delaying that sale, then the other party can then apply for sole conduct of sale of the home. And so the other party would sort of would be forced basically to cooperate or sign off on whatever documents, or the person who has sole conduct would be able to make all the decisions on how much it would be listed for, and the counter offers, and even the amount that they're accepting it for.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, Abby, I have another question then. What happens in the case, maybe, does real estate and prenuptial agreement go hand in hand? So a prenup and real estate, what happens if I'm coming into maybe a newer relationship and I already own some properties and I don't want to share them with my new partner? Even if we don't get married, or we do, but I'm living together, is there something that I can sort of do in a prenuptial agreement?
That's a good question, yes. If you're living together or getting married, you can consider a cohab agreement or a marriage agreement. Any property coming into your relationship we call it excluded or separate property, and that's your property.
Okay.
But the increase in value can be shared equally with your common law spouse or marry or person that you marry.
Okay.
And if you want to protect those properties that you are bringing into a relationship, you can put that in a cohab agreement or a marriage agreement, or commonly known as a prenup, and which basically says that those properties are going to be your separate property if you separate, including the increase in value and any income produced from it.
Okay. So it's a good idea then. So basically, question then, you could go into a relationship maybe and have a prenuptial agreement, and then is it possible to change that? Like, let's say it's been 15 years, you've had a couple kids, a few dogs, some cats, and you're like, I think I want to change my prenup because we weren't married. Can you change that? Is that something you can do?
Yes, they're called postnup.
Postnup. We got prenups, we got postnups, we got cohabitat, we got soul something. Okay, what is a postnup?
It's basically the same as a marriage agreement or prenup, but it's just made after you get married. So that's why they're called postnups.
I see. Okay. Wow. Fascinating. So many different things with real estate. So I think for anybody out there who has any questions, maybe they're getting into a relationship and they already have existing properties, or maybe they are exiting their current relationship and they're getting a divorce. So if anybody has any questions about divorce or prenuptial agreements or anything to do with properties and real estate, you're definitely going to reach out to Abby Peng here, and she will guide you through everything, and I will leave her contact details down below if anybody has any questions. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks again, Abby, so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Abby Peng and Aaron Price Emery, your local real estate expert.